Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. All right. Hey, welcome back, guys, to another, what's going to be a fun episode of Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, host of the show. With me in studio at Seed Creative Studios in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in their new, very swanky studio. Man, so proud for those guys. But in the Seed Creative Studios, I got Matt Heaton here with me. How you doing, Matt?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Do you like my shirt?
It's okay.
It's okay. I got it at Walmart for $5 today.
I would give you $3.50.
It was normally $20, but I got it for $5. I feel special. But anyway,
Good deal.
Joining us by Zoom today because he's so busy, and Chris Kennedy said, we'll talk about that in a minute.
We'll bring that up
about Chris Kennedy. Is Andy Chamness, who is currently the Director of Career Technical Education for Tallapoosa County Schools. We got a cool upgrade on the horizon. We'll talk about that too. But Andy, it's a pleasure to have you by Zoom. We've been trying to make this happen for a long time, so we're glad you're here.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. We have been trying to make this happen for a long time, and now I'm kind of scared about what Chris Kennedy said. So just
well, I'll be honest with you.
We're not going to use the word lazy, but he drove from way further away than you to be in person today. He just wanted us to let you know that.
Oh yeah, I would laud that over me too. I sure would.
Yeah, he pointed that out, and I was like, hey, I don't know, Chris. I don't know if you'd say that on air, but he said it, and I was like, well, I'm not going to tell Andy, but I did anyway. So y'all can sort that out. That's on y'all.
We can edit that out if you'd like.
He was like, oh man, Andy's a good friend of mine, and he's like, I'm surprised he didn't just like run over here. Are you like a ultra athlete or something?
Me? No.
But the way he said it was like, yeah, I was surprised he just didn't run. I was like, okay, well, maybe he's David Goggins down there in Tallapoosa County.
If you see me running, you better run too.
Yeah. Well, listen, we are for real. We're glad you're here. So you've got a pretty good background, and I'm excited to hear the things you have to say about all things workforce and leadership and faith and service to those around us. But before we get off into the weeds of real questions, give us the audience a quick rundown of who you are, where you came from, and how you got to where you are right now in life.
Okay. My name's Andy Chamness. I'm a current career and technical director for Tallapoosa County Schools. In just a month or so, I'll be transitioning to the education director of the brand new Central Alabama Academy of Craft Training. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, in a few minutes. I'm a product of career and technical education. I was a FFA member, and back then FHA member, now FCCLA member.
Yeah.
I served participated in many teams and organizations and as officers. And my dad was an agri-science teacher, so I guess you could say it's in my blood. I had no intention of going into education, and education found me. So I'm one of those that came by it a different way. I've worked in industry and ag and related industries prior to education, and I've been in education now 20 years. So it's been a really good career. Several years ago, I accepted a call to ministry, so we've been doing that for a few years now, and both of those feed off each other. I don't know how I would do one without the other. So it's really been a fun ride, a unique ride in a lot of ways. I would say probably the best thing about it is the people that I get to meet and work with and get to know.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly an interesting background. And you mentioned you have family history, so it's in your blood. But what was it that said, hey, let me go ahead and take that step to get into career tech education? What was the very first the thing that made you go?
Well, I was at Auburn University studying poultry and animal science, and I was taking a class with Dr. Don Mulvaney called Agricultural Issues. It was basically a debate class. And there was this little blonde-headed girl in that class, and my sole purpose in life was to aggravate her to death.
Okay.
And so I played devil's advocate on every issue, whether I agreed with it or not. And Dr. Mulvaney on a particular day basically asked me to but was to lead the class. He wasn't going to be there. And he asked me to lead the class, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not a teacher. It's not going to happen. And he kept encouraging me and basically didn't give me a choice. And I think it was at that moment when we talked after the fact, he's like, you're pretty good at this. Like you should get in. You should think about education,
Yeah.
particularly teaching ag. And so I had other people talking to me about ag education as well. And so I ended up getting my master's in ag ed. I finished my undergrad in poultry and animal science and then got a master's in ag ed and started teaching. That's kind of how I got in it because both of my parents were educators and were like, hey, you may not want to do this. And so I was really, my whole purpose was to go back and be a broiler breeder service rep for a poultry company in North Alabama, which is where I grew up. And that one class, that one shift, that one piece of encouragement really shifted me to going into career and technical education, particularly ag ed.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it happened.
Well, I think that happens to a lot of folks. You just have that single moment that says, okay, well, I can do that for sure. So you're a bivocational pastor, serving all kinds of students and then serving all the congregation in the community. How does your work in your experiences in the ministry and in the education world mesh? How do they mesh?
Oh, there is a considerable amount of overlap. I think any educator or pastor or whoever that's worked with people long enough would tell you, I wish I had started writing down the stories long ago so that I could compile them. But one plays off the other. I think on the one hand, the management side of running an operation, any kind of operation, running a school comes from industry experience. It comes from um, learning how to be an educator, how to plan, especially career tech teacher, how to make sure kids are where they're supposed to be, the contests, all the prep work, the attention to detail and organization is one of those things that I had to develop. It didn't come naturally to me and I had to develop that. And I think part of those things transfer. I would say probably more important than that is having good people around you that know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important in both of those things. And I'm very blessed in both of those capacities to have people that go above and beyond. They also see what they do at church and at school as a calling. And so it's real easy when you have good people surrounding you.
Gosh, man, this guy sitting across from me, the first minute they were like, hey, you need some help? I'm like, yeah, and I know two people. They're offering me one position. I'm like, no, I need two of them and hear their names. I probably shouldn't say that because HR's listening, but Matt, I was like, I got to have Sandy and Matt. And I worked with Sandy in the previous job and I worked with Matt before that. And I was like, so I feel you, man, like having good people who know what's going on around you. Like if without them, I would be
well, and I was
dead in
going
the
to
water.
plug in the same thing when you're going down the list of how did we get here. You forgot the K-12 representation of the Smoozapalooza.
Oh yeah.
When we met with the State Department, like that's got to be at the top of your resume. But that was a pivotal time to like it. I don't even know that we've got it listed to address today, but we talked about it with Chris earlier. It seems like the further you get up the ladder in education, the further you get from the students. And you were once at the State Department, kind of like he was, and came back to where you are now. But to be able to have those different influences to be able to have that Smoozapalooza that day, because that was the biggest gain we've had to date with our courses in the K-12 world. So thank you for that. Make sure you put that on your resume.
Well, I think I hadn't thought about it as Schmoozapalooza, but it's one of those things where you get the right players involved.
Yep.
And you get the right, it's all a blessing. Like Chris and I are great friends. We still talk, and it's good to have people that you can bounce ideas off of. And I think that above anything else, before we went into that particular meeting, that's what we were doing is how do we make this work for our kids?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have a heart for kids. That was one of my requests when I went when I was speaking with the deacons of the church before I took the position was I still want to work with the youth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to give that up because it's raw, it's real, and that's the way I feel about school as well. it's about getting into their lives. And I had some 6 to 12 kids that I worked with at the State Department closely, as far as those state FFA officers, and they're the cream of the crop. They don't need you. They're going to make it no matter what.
That's right.
Yep.
But I missed that everyday interaction with the kids that aren't necessarily the cream of the crop. That, that those 6 kids, they're going to make it, but the 600 kids back in the school system that might not make it, if I can change their life or help get them on a path that changes their life, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and all that goes back to leadership and doing the right things for the right reasons. But you've spent many years leading career tech programs in Tallapoosa County. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about preparing those students for the real world?
As far as preparing the student for the real world, it's the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, getting them to understand it's not going to be, everybody's not spoon feeding you everything all the time.
Right.
It's really, we're trying to prep you for everything that you're going to face. And I think too, one of the things in education that maybe we don't hold in high esteem is it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want you to make mistakes. Let's make all your mistakes here. You mentioned the State Department. One of my favorite things at the State Department was New Teacher Institute, when I got to talk to those new teachers, because one of the things that I would tell them is, don't be in a hurry to go back home with your first job. Go make your mistakes somewhere else and come back a veteran, a hardened, ready to go, know how to work veteran.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to tell our kids, especially in career tech here, is we want you to come. Mistakes are expected. I think I call it the real world, but the real world doesn't know how expensive it is to run a career tech program, because you expect kids to tear stuff up.
Yep.
Because they're learning. You're breaking eggs to make the omelet. And when you do that, you're going to burn through welding rods. You're going to burn through lumber. You're going to burn through all the things that it takes to run that program. And it makes it, it's expensive when you start doing that, but it's worth it, because that's really what learning is. I had an older gentleman tell me one time, and I've said this 1,000 times, the best experience is bought experience, because it hurts the most. Like there's you invest in it, and so it means more to you. I think if we're going to teach kids effectively, I think that's one of the things that we have to accept within ourselves is they're never going to be perfect. They're going to make mistakes of all kinds, but we have to be able to see and foresee teachable moments. That's important for any educator, but particularly for a career tech teacher.
You mentioned that the perceptions of what it takes to put on technical education. One of the questions, now I'd say we're a good 10 years into the resurgence of workforce education. Like I can remember about 2014, 15, where I was a teacher at the time. They were like, "Oh, we got to do something for career tech," and they called it academies, and it wasn't even career tech. It was just focused academics for nursing and things. But then quickly it became manufacturing and some career tech. So as we're moving into not quite the zenith of that shift towards skilled trades and workforce readiness, why do you think that mission is still so important more than ever before?
Clearly it's extremely important, because we haven't met the workforce needs. I mean, we've got to be able to well, let me say it this way. There's so much opportunity out there for people to go to work. I think societally speaking, we're fighting a war against just good old hard work, old fashioned get up and
Yes,
go
sir.
to work.
Mm-hmm.
What a buddy of mine in South Alabama calls just gumption, just have, that desire to pursue the American dream. I think we've lost that in some capacities. And so we try, at least in my perspective, my crew here, we try to instill that, like, don't ever let anybody tell you this is the top of the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, keep going and keep pushing, keep learning. Like so in that, I think that Alabama is on the cutting edge of being a leader in the nation in workforce development. I think we've been very intentional about it. I think we've looked at other states at what they've done well, because in education you borrow and you steal good ideas, and even on the governor's side of the house, the workforce development side of the house, both areas are trying to get to the same goal. I think one of the hurdles we face is it's like speaking Latin and Greek. We're trying to say the same thing, but we don't understand each other just perfectly yet. Um, because I've seen in my job, industry says, well, why can't you do this? And then the educational bureaucracy says, because we got this red tape.
Yeah.
And we all want the same thing, but we just have a hard time. There's a language barrier and a procedural barrier sometimes, which I think the legislature has made some good choices and some good legislation to try to help navigate and mitigate some of those things. I think the way that workforce is structured now in Alabama is bringing everybody to the same conversation. And I think that for a long time in career technical education, we had advisory committees, we had subcommittees, we had all of this,
Right.
but we were still kind of them versus us. And now everybody's kind of sitting at the same table, learning how to talk to each other. No one part is more important than the whole. And that, I think, is, at least for me, I've seen a bigger shift in how much everybody's coming to the table with, oh, well, here's the ideas, let's fix it together, instead of we can't. And I think that's been a huge shift.
Agreed. A follow-up question to that, and you mentioned the legislators in the state, and man, they've been good to us. Like they were just really good to us again in the budget session for the next fiscal year. But occasionally people will say, and some legislators who aren't as involved with us, with the college system, or some industry partners, they'll say, hey, you're spending a lot of time and money in K-12. And why? And they're not; those kids aren't getting jobs in mass, with the dollars we're being given, and they're respectful about it. But it's like, okay, well, right, but we're telling those 10th, 11th, 12th graders, hey, here are some career options, and so we're hoping to inform them or train them, coach them up on what is available, and to give them real skill sets. But from all of your expertise, what would you say to an outside person who's like, why are you spending so much time there? What would you say to them about why we are there for so long with so much investment?
I would say that the educational side of the house, the educational research side of the house, says the younger we can get them, the better that it's going to be for opening hearts and minds. I'll give you an example. I didn't mention this on my resume, but I got a chance to spend some time as administrator in an elementary school. And what I learned from that in the career tech space is when you watch pre-K or kindergarten graduation and you ask those babies what they want to be when they grow up, it's always a police officer, a firefighter, a nurse, or a teacher.
Yep.
It's the things they've read about in those storybooks that they get in class. And so unless the teacher in that elementary classroom is a spouse of a person that works in the industry or in industry or trades and has some understanding of that, they came straight out of college, straight into the classroom. In other words, they never left school.
Exactly.
And so it's difficult for them to be able to share what industry, trades especially, looks like and why that's valuable, because for the last half century or to 3/4 of a century, we preach that everybody goes to college. Well, if you look at the statistics, business schools are full of kids that are about to go into the retail space.
Yeah.
You're so right,
Yep.
man. You're so right.
So I think, and part of our problem is we're having to do a counterculture movement on the war we've created on working, skilled trades and construction type jobs, manufacturing type jobs, when in reality, Hollywood is not helping us either. Our marketing is not helping us either. When you see a plumber that's made to look like Mario or Luigi, or you see his butt crack, you're not painting a picture of what that person really does for a living when they're driving around in an $84,000 truck.
Yeah.
And the bulk of their company work is done on a cell phone in that truck.
Yeah.
If they own the business. And I think that's another place we can be real impactful with kids, is to tell the good ones, the top tier student, your goal in this American dream pursuit should not be to work for the company, but to own the company.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you've gone through the process. And I think that's another thing too for our kids, is it's a process. So in to answer your question, in selling that to someone, I deal in human capital. My business is not producing something on a manufacturing line. My business is producing a product that will go to work, pass the drug test, learn on the job, and do what they say they'll do while they're there.
Yep.
And have a desire to want to know more. If I can produce that product for the industry, I think we've won. And so telling somebody that's a legislator or somebody on the outside that's trying to understand what it is that we're all trying to accomplish, I would say not just high school, secondary education, but elementary education. We need to be talking about careers that are available to these kids that are six-figure, $30 an hour. And how do they get there? And what it really looks like, instead of showing that very cartoonish, very comical version of those trades, but to be real with those kids. And I think one easy way to do that, especially in elementary education, is just bring people in. Let them crawl on the fire truck. That's a good way. Let them come and swing the hammer. One of the funnest things I did as a teacher was something silly and goofy, but it was a nail driving contest and a how fast can you take a crosscut saw and crosscut a 2x4? Who can do that the fastest and the straightest? And there was a lot of things that I was learning out of that about my students. They didn't know I was doing this, but I was seeing who had good hand-eye coordination, who would listen to instruction, who had competitive drive to be the best. I was looking for soft skills in those two little fun contests at the beginning of my ag class. And so there's a lot to be said for those that get it. And so I very much appreciate those legislators that get it.
Yeah.
But we sell it to them simply by saying, we change the narrative that both K-12 education and post-secondary education through certifications or associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees or whatever, we're building a product the same as any manufacturing industry or any contractor out there. We're building something, but that something is in human capital. And if we can get them to understand that the kid that is a great welding student can also be a great maintenance supervisor or maintenance technician at a manufacturing plant, those skills are transferable. And we stop worrying about what's necessarily certification they got, but the content of what that kid is about, who they are. That to me is a product that can be sold to any company across our state in any locale. So I think that narrative has to shift a little more toward, so I'll give you this example, then I'll hush with this question. I think it's worth saying this. I was in a meeting with a stakeholder. We had been to this plant. We were trying to get in with job shadowing and things like that. And we toured the facility and we're sitting down at the conference table after the fact. And we're talking about our programs, and we were talking about what we had to offer. And I brought up the welding program, and I would put our welding teacher up against anybody in the state. He's one of the best in the state. And I was talking about how good the kids are that come out of his program. And the gentleman across the table with the company said to me, he said, I don't think you understand what we do here. And it kind of struck me, and I didn't take offense to it, but it just kind of gave me pause. And I said, no, sir, I don't think you understand what we do. That same welding kid that shows up, that is creative, that competes in metal fabrication, metal art, welding sculpture, all of those things, that same kid that is there day in and day out because they choose to be there is going to be the same employee that in 6 months you're promoting to a supervisor.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And once we kind of had that discussion, like, yeah, I know they're not a manufacturing student, they're a welding student, but they still have a similar skill set and can still benefit. And so it's reciprocal in the fact of, if you'll let them in the door, we'll show you what kind of person you're going to get. And I think for industry, if I could wave a magic wand for industry, I wish Alabama would revisit our child labor laws when it comes to on-the-job training. Help some lawyers understand that we can put some kids to work in a part-time type situation that's not 18 years old, and they're going to be trained like you want them trained, and not there's always going to be that risk of accident. That's just the nature of the business. But if they're trained and they've been through OSHA training and they've been through your safety training at your company, I wish the legislature would make some exceptions to and help protect the industry folks so that they're not afraid of liability for hiring 16 and 17-year-old kids.
Sure.
I'm not saying work them till midnight,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying help us get them in the door so that we can be doing some cross training all along the way. I think that would be extremely beneficial to the industry because, like you said, now in the K-12 space, industry has more buy-in because they may take 6 kids at this company, but those 6 kids matriculate into full-time positions with that company.
Yep.
Right.
You said it.
So-
They're transferable and adaptable.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a piggyback question to Houston's, but some of your answers coincide with my question with our courses specifically on the CRI list in all the different career tech programs. Some of those course attachments, sometimes they don't make sense, but they're transferable. Just like you said, if a welding student is taking one of our heavy equipment, does a welder use heavy equipment, but know the skills they've learned in welding class aside from all the other things can still go on a resume to work in this place. So the same questions that Houston was talking about, from legislation to the K-12 world and the job placements, skills for success specifically, how does that kind of all coincide and work together in the K-12 world?
I think anytime we can put a feather in the cap of a student, a valid program like Skills for Success, like a certification that's recognized by industry, anytime we can add that to their resume, we build. So here's the part I think a lot of people miss. I think a lot of people don't, in my world, in my profession, have a hard time marketing some of those things. And it's just like we said a moment ago, they're transferable skills. So you guys both will know, I don't know if the audience knows, but we jumped on that heavy equipment really quick with it.
Early.
And we saw that for our agri-science students and our welding students, they need that. Well, I'll give you an example with forklift. It's hard no company will put a kid that's all younger than 18 on a forklift.
Sure.
Right.
So that's not something they can do. And I've often kidded with the child labor folks. I can put a kid in my welding shop on a chop saw or my ag shop with the table saw, and they can run that baby all day, but they can't cut a head of lettuce in a grocery store with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So the same applies. So one of the questions the superintendent and I had when we were talking about heavy equipment, he was like, well, what's the liability of this? And I said, well, it's the same as running my ag shops. There's always an inherent risk, but the whole premise is teaching these kids about safety. And so we've actually got students that have graduated from our programs through several. I think the one I have in mind has got 4 certifications on heavy equipment. He's working for municipality now, and that's all he does is spend all day on equipment.
Yeah.
But those folks also tell us, those being the industry folks, that today he may be on a piece of equipment, tomorrow he may be on a shovel.
Yep.
And so it's also that understanding that I got the job because I can show that I have these things. And I think that's the beautiful part about the Skills for Success programs is I don't have to stop with one. One is not enough. Let's get a bunch. Let's show them that I have all of these skills. So you think about the kid that's also got the like the just the relationships, the certifications for relationships like customer service and those things. They need that too, because if they're going to take what they learn and then start their own business one day, they've got to have those skills as well.
Right.
So for me, it's about building a portfolio for a kid that just constantly stacks into their resume. So it is stackable in that regard, and it is transferable. And we forget a lot of times we're building a whole kid, and I refer to kids, but we're building a whole product.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if I can add value to the product that I'm producing, in the form of human capital in these students for industry, I think it's a win. And I think once it gets kind of going and off the ground, it sells itself. So that's kind of how, for me, the importance of those added to the CRI list. If it doesn't have value, I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to promote it. But in this case, I think the work has been done. I think you guys have done I know I'm trying to blow smoke up your behinds, but I think it's good stuff, or I wouldn't promote it, because it's saying to industry, the community college, secondary education, and industry are all behind this thing. For the first time, we're not selling something that nobody knows about, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so for a kid going into that adds value. But then the flip side of that is when we do our awards program here at school and we're putting them in a hard hat and a yellow vest as part of and presenting them with their certificate, they're literally and figuratively walking off the stage job ready. Like that's one of the cool things is seeing them get their hard hat and their vests. They're ready. They've got these certifications and various things. And we're attesting to this kid. I would hire this kid. One of the coolest things I ever got to see at the State Department of Education was a business and industry partner get up out of their seat at the state FFA convention, walk across the impact in Montgomery, grab a student as they're walking off the stage and offer them a job on the spot.
Yeah.
And here's what the young man did. He turned down the offer and said, I'm going to go back home and take over the family business and run that business.
Okay.
But that's but that kid's got options, right?
That's
Right.
giving kids options for sure. I
So,
love that.
anyway.
Love that story.
Speaking of options, let's transition to the Academy of Craft Training. So you said July 1st, you're preparing. That'll probably be about the time this airs. So by the time this podcast airs, you will have taken on the role at the Central Alabama Academy of Craft Training doing what?
So I will be the education director for that campus. It's the 4th in the state. So the model has been set and been proven across the state. This is the 10th year of operation for the program. It started in Birmingham, then Mobile. There's a campus in Decatur, Alabama, and we'll be the 4th campus located in northern Montgomery, just across the river bridge from Elmore County. So our goal there is to serve the central part of the state. We have students from, I think it is 8 different school districts participating at present. And every year we're open to more. We'll serve about 200 students a day is the goal through 4 programs. One of the things that I like most about it is that it is hyper focused on commercial construction. And those programs are commercial construction. So I when I tell the kids or talk to about students, I say it like this. Commercial construction is putting the building up. Then we have an electrical program that's putting all the electrical components, not just the light switches or the plugs or the receptacles, the whole system. HVACR, so the refrigeration component of that. So we can put all of that into it. And then also it's called industrial metal fabrication, but it has a commercial plumbing component to it where it's pipe fitting and running larger pipe, welding larger pipe. Is that it's a different spin on what you might see at a traditional welding program, because that's what the commercial construction industry is needing, is those. And again, I tell people it's about those transferable skills. It's designed for juniors and seniors, so it's a 2-year, potentially a 2-year program. The one cool thing about it that I really, really like is, for me, it is a model, and I'm a purist. So we were talking about baseball, I'm a baseball purist too. So when I say this, it's coming from a place of this is what career and technical education should be. It is industry driven. So I'll stop right there and say that this is a joint partnership between the Alabama State Department of Education and private industry. It's funded by those 2 components, which makes it a cool venture to say this can be done and replicated on a local level too. But in all of that, it's a purist in the sense that it's industry driven. And the industry says we got to have a workforce. We want Alabamians working on these manufacturing buildings and these schools and these hospitals being built in Alabama, the metadata plants that are being built in Alabama. They don't just go up by themselves, but we need a workforce to be able to build those things. And so that's where this industry driven part is. And in that program, the goal is that those students leave that program with a job. A lot of times in the case, before they walk across the stage at their high school graduation, they've signed with a company and know exactly where they're going to work on Wednesday morning after they walk across the stage. To me, that's the whole essence of what career and technical education is. It's what we try to do in Tallapoosa County, is to replicate that. But this is a chance to focus specifically on one area of need. And I think other areas, other industries could eventually begin to replicate that. That's one thing I'll mention here too, is we talk a lot about AI. AI is like the buzzword right now, and it's gonna take all of our jobs and all the things. And it's not for a contractor, not for a plumber. Somebody's got to build those metadata plants. Somebody's got to put the hardware in that runs that AI. So those jobs, those trade skills, they're not going anywhere. I was looking for another project today, still, and at least in our workforce region, healthcare, manufacturing, and construction are still at the top tier of in-demand jobs in our area. So that tells me that, hey, we got to find a way to put them, and this is just a specialty program for kids to have access to the jobs. Here's how I sell it. If I was a coach, a high school football coach, and I wanted to put a kid in front of SEC colleges, I've got to take the kid to combines. I've got to get scouts to come and see the kid. My role is to get that potential D1 athlete in connection with some recruiter or some head coach at a college. The same holds true for career tech employees, not just the Academy of Craft, but for career tech directors and teachers. My job is to recruit industry to come and watch these kids or to meet these kids and evaluate their potential for signing with them.
Right.
That's why we call it signing days in career tech.
Mhm.
It's the same role. We're playing the role of a head coach, trying to get our kid in front of the best scouts and making those connections for the kids. Because if y'all know this, for as much social activity as they have online, they struggle with sitting across the table with somebody and talking about why they're better than somebody else.
Yeah, most can't do it. Yeah, I make my kid go look people in the eye and shake their hand.
Yeah,
man, because
that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about that project, that particular opportunity, is because I think it is a purest sense of what we're trying to do. It's not for everybody, but neither is a education and training program or a health science program. Right. And I think a lot of people dismiss the fact that sometimes our job in career tech is just to help kids figure out what they don't want to do.
Well, that's I love that. And I use that line a lot about, a student, if they're looking, 180 or maybe 270-degree view about, I might do all these things. And then they take some course and they absolutely hate it. There was a young girl at Abbeville in the simulators, and she got in the excavator for about 30 seconds. And that thing rocked one good time. She had the bucket. She kept driving the bucket down, and the whole thing tilted back.
Yep.
And she said, let me out. I don't like this. And I'm like, okay, darling, no big deal. Got her out. And I said, so you don't want to do heavy equipment? She said, absolutely not. What's the next thing? And so I love when kids have that opportunity to go swing that hammer, pull that wire, hook up that P-trap. They're like, you know what? I love this. Or like, not me. Like, we're something else. And so I love to hear you say that. And I think that's the question I really have is, so we've got our program, you've got the Academy of Craft Training, you've got other entities that do skilled trade development. What do we do with all that, and what's our best opportunity to make it all work in the next 10 years?
I think we're on the right track. I really do. I think continuing the conversation and having all the people at the table. I think also we're going to have to do a better job, and I am guilty of this as well. We're going to have to do a better job of educating the parents of our students, pre-K 12, college age. We've got to do a better job of saying it's okay to work in a skilled trade. It's okay to work in a manufacturing facility. It's not a 1920s coal mine.
Right.
It's not that. And our healthcare in this country is such, and our resources is such that we have the capacity to take better care of our citizens than we ever have. They have more rights than we've ever had as a country. They're going to be taken care of in the workspace. And the beautiful part is when you get that skill set, you have that skill set, you built that up, you get a choice to be loyal, or you get a choice to move for $1 an hour raise, because the positions are out there. So until the market is saturated, why in the world would I tell a kid not to try for something where over the next 5 years they can have a potential for a $30,000 increase in pay over the next 5 years from where they start entry level to where they wind up as a 29-year-old.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come from with it is you get into stuff, you get out of stuff what you put into stuff. If you're willing to work and learn and take chances and opportunities as they come, you have the potential to make as much money as you want to make, to do what you want to do. And I think selling that for parents, because I want my kids I would love for my kids to continue their education. I want them to be above all of that, above whether my kids, my personal kids has a doctor in front of their name or not. Nobody should ever stop wanting to learn for a lifetime. You should always be a lifetime learner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we put caps on kids and we tell them, well, you're going to go be a garbage man. Well, be the best garbage man you can be. Learn as much about how that truck. You might be the next guy that says there's a better way.
Yep.
And invents a garbage truck that revolutionizes the industry because you never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we try to cap kids off sometimes, students off, by saying, "Oh, you'll never make enough money in that field or that trade or whatever." And it's simply not the case.
Yeah, way leads to way. We had a guest recently on a previous episode. He started his own company. He was just out of school, just out of college. Had a college degree and started pressure washing. Because he wanted to do something different, wanted to make some money. And now he owns his own construction firm. He's 29 years old, and his thing was be a student of the game and never get tired of learning a new way. I was like, wow, that's really powerful. That's gonna be a
That
really
is
good
really
episode.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, be a student of the game.
Yeah, that's a good stuff. But there's more to that, being a student of the game of life. Matt, take us down that road.
Yep. Kind of the final question for this episode. In addition to all your educational leadership, you're also a pastor of, correct me if I say it wrong, Notasulga First Baptist Church.
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
All right. First Baptist Church. So, with all the things you do, how has your faith and ministry shaped your approach to leadership?
I will tell you, there is a saying that I have learned, and I try to remember it often. It's that I should never complain about God giving me the things that I've prayed for.
Yep.
And so I've been extremely blessed. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, would I be in the ministry, I would have laughed at you. And God is good in so many ways. And I'm a nerd. I'm a student. I love to learn about all things. And so I tell my congregation that they get to suffer me being a teacher every Sunday morning and Sunday night and my students, my teenagers on Wednesday nights, because I want to edify them. I think that's the most important thing. And that's where a lot of that crossover, we could talk about management styles and all of those things. At the end of the day, we're never too old or too smart to continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that drive for me for myself to learn, but for also to help those people in the congregation and my students and my teachers going to professional development to continue to push them to grow. That is so important to me. It is watching people grow into the leaders they can be, to take on these roles, to take risks. Somebody at some point believed in me. And I think that's one of the biggest things I can say as a blessing is I look back on my life and I've had really good people take me under their wing, and I've made really good choices in who I've followed. And they've taught me how to be ethical, and they've taught me how to make good decisions and how to use logic and work through a problem, and to keep people's emotions and feelings not in check, but to understand those and put them as part of the equation. And so I guess those people in my life have helped me to build a formula that have helped me to kind of learn how to manage manage people. And so you take classes in education in college about how to manage behaviors and things like that. But it really is a people business. All of this, education, church, the whole 9 yards, is a people business. And so I think there's a you kind of asked me about my life, and there's a line. It's one of my favorite movies. Is Tombstone with Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, and Kurt Russell. Those guys, and Val Kilmer's character Doc Holliday is laying there on his deathbed, and Wyatt is bemoaning the fact that his life hadn't turned out quite like he thought it would, and Doc Holliday's character looks up at him and says, "There is no normal life. There's just life. We get one shot at this thing to do the most good we can while we're here, and to try to help as many people as we can." And really, that's what it's all about. It's, if I could tell kids anything, it's about who you know and what they think of you, and it's about making good choices. You'll be a rich man if you'll make good choices.
Yep.
And not just monetarily, but in all aspects of your life. You'll be a good person, a good man or a good woman if you'll just be thoughtful in the choices that you make. So blending those two, and it has been a blessing. I'm not going to say it's been easy. Working 2 jobs, 3 jobs is never easy, but they feed off of each other, and I'm just incredibly blessed to get to pour into kids and be a servant leader. And I think it's part of that Christ-like mentality is you got to meet people where they are.
Yep.
That kid that doesn't know anything about being in the industry. And if you don't mind, if you'll give me the time, I'll share a last story with you. We had a young lady. We were doing job shadows. The career coaches do a fantastic job in Tallapoosa County lining these kids up with careers. And this is one of the strangest ones that we've done. This young lady wanted to shadow a mortician locally.
Okay.
Wanted to go into the funeral home and learn how to do that work. And we thought we kind of had a little behind the scenes wager going on of how this is going to go. And so we come back and we debrief the student, and the student is talking about, we're thinking, okay, she's going to hate this. Like this is a one and done deal. This is a young lady, really no other aspirations, really didn't really know where she was headed. She comes back and guess what, guys? She's learning. She's learning how to get certified to be a mortician. Like she's going to school she decided in that job shadow, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Wow. And to me, I'm like, there's no way. But until we expose kids to what is out there through whatever mechanism we've got to, and that's where all of the things that we've talked about today play into each other. Until we just expose them to careers and what it's really like, we'll never be able to paint a picture for them. It's kind of like a Jackson Pollock painting. You can look at it and I can get one thing out of it, and Matt can get another thing out of it, and it's still worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, we can look at the same kid through 2 different sets of lenses and go, that kid's going to make something or not. But at the end of the day, that kid's worth something. They have value. Let's try to push them to that place where they can be successful, regardless of how it makes us look. I think that's the name of the game is, I want to say it was basically Harry Truman that said, everybody wins when nobody takes the credit, is basically what he was trying to say in that speech is, hey, I don't want the credit. Who cares who gets the credit? Let's just do the job and be successful that way.
Do the right thing for the right reasons and let the result take care of itself.
Yeah,
they will, I think.
Yeah,
they will. We've been so lucky, partners like you, Andy, and around the state and K-12 industry, even in the state legislators, even outside the state. We've just been lucky. The people not caring who wins, just so the kids get it. So, good stuff, man. We appreciate your time today, Andy. Your passion, man. I if we're gonna put a word on this episode, passion for putting people in the right position to win. I'm invigorated by that. Because at our age, it's tough sometimes because we've seen it all. We think we've seen it all, done it all, and man, we just can't beat the system, or the odds are too big against us. But I love what you're doing. I can't wait to see how we can partner when you're at the Craft Training Academy. I think there's a segue there for some of the kids who finished some of our courses, but I look forward to that in the future. Just thanks for being here, man. I know it's
Guys,
a time constraint for you. So, Matt, final thoughts?
Echoing what you said, I have appreciated the friendship, the workmanship that we've had together over the last
3 years.
Yeah, yeah. And looking forward to how we can intertwine with one another in the future, especially with the Academy of Craft. But thank you for what you do.
yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me today. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, us too, man. Lots of little nuggets in there. We'll be good, man, and we're gonna wrap this thing up, Matt.
Yes, this is going to conclude another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Any information we spoke about on this episode, you can visit our website at trainforalabama.com. That's train, F-O-R, alabama.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on all your social media platforms. Thank you.